Hello, and welcome to this edition of Ask the Professor, where we answer your questions on history, on culture, on current events, on anything really except why can't the Maple Leafs win the Stanley Cup?
Are you done with this one? You answered that one already.
I know, but those were the days. Remember Dave Keon?
No.
George Armstrong?
No.
Johnny Bauer?
No. I remember Dale Hunter, number 32. Oh, he was cool.
People remember Paul Henderson, of course. I remember who his wingmate was. It was Ron Ellis. But enough on this subject.
Who cares? Yes, no, we're going to make a whole bunch of enemies if we keep talking about hockey. Now, I think Dale Hunter, was he really number 32? I don't know, but I sure liked him back in those days. Now, let's move on to a topic that's a lot less controversial than this. War. One question we got from one of your backers is, what exactly started World War I? In school, he says, we all learned, we were all told, and if you read any book on it, you'll see that what apparently started the First World War was the assassination of Franz Ferdinand, but there was never really much context given to that. So if you could flesh this out a little bit, that would help us a lot.
Yeah, that's what the books say, right? Gavrilo Princip shot Archduke Franz Ferdinand, and Europe tumbled into the abyss. But can such cataclysmic events really have such small causes? I remember years ago at the chess club, this strange character, but I repeat myself.
Hey, you were there too.
Asking me, why did all those people have to die? And you can't say because some zealot shot a nobleman, or even because Franz Ferdinand's chauffeur got lost and had to backtrack, giving the hapless assassins a second go at him. Or you could look at what happens after. You could say, okay, you got the Austro-Hungarian ultimatum to Serbia, you get the Russian ultimatum to Austria-Hungary, you get the German ultimatum to Russia, you get the British and French, and the dominoes fall. But who set the dominoes up in the first place? I mean, if it was really random, it's not just frightening. There's no point in studying history. It really is just one thing after another, frequently awful. But there's an underlying pattern here. And the underlying pattern is of aggression that is not deterred, because the fundamental cause of World War I was the German determination to upset the existing order in Europe. There's a very interesting prediction by the head of the British Navy in 1911, Jackie Fisher. He said war will come in the summer of 1914. How did he know? Because he said that's when the Germans will have completed the Kiel Canal, which will let them move their new dreadnought battleships back and forth between the Baltic to fight Russia and the North Sea to fight Britain. Why did the Germans want to fight Britain? Why did German naval officers toast a Der Tag, the day when they would beat the Royal Navy? The Royal Navy was a force for good in the world, but it stood in the way of Germany's ability to attack Britain's continental allies and seize their territory, and they were determined to do it. So in fact, the Kaiser and his advisors had a war conference in 1912, planning World War I. Not planning it the way it unfolded, of course. They didn't plan to lose it. They didn't think it would go on for 4 years. They were hoping for a quick victory by Christmas. And indeed, they almost achieved it. If you want more on that, watch my documentary, The Great War Remembered. If you're looking for the profoundest causes of the Great War, look out there to the North Sea and think about German geopolitical ambitions. It was there that the German High Seas Fleet was meant to beat the Royal Navy and wrest control of the oceans from Britannia. German naval officers toasted Der Tag when that would happen. Also from there that the U-boats fanned out through the North Atlantic, posing a geopolitical threat not merely to Britain, but also to the United States that ultimately brought it into the war, especially after the Germans tried to persuade Mexico to attack the United States on the promise they could have the American Southwest back. But the simple fact is that the Germans wanted this war, and they wanted it then because they had a large industrial lead on both Russia and France, but those two countries were catching up. So when the crisis came in the summer of 1914, the Kaiser said it's now or never, and that's why it was now. And of course, there are a lot of things that go into causing a war. Among other things, I think if Theodore Roosevelt had won the 1912 presidential election in the United States, he would have warned the Germans that if they attacked Britain and France, America would come in, and I think that would have deterred the Germans. But the critical point here is that Germany was determined to upset the existing order. They were building up their military, both their land forces and their navy, and the Western powers were not matching them, and they were not clearly signaling their determination to fight. So in this sense, World War I, for all the historical specifics, is a very old story. Aggressors preparing for war, peace-loving nations not taking it seriously, not deterring them, and not following that old Roman maxim, if you want peace, prepare for war. So the fundamental cause of World War I is the existence of aggression and a failure to deter it. And although I think Germany's about done at this point as a threat to world order, that old story is one that we have heard many times and are in grave danger of hearing again.
I like that story because it puts Theodore Roosevelt to good light, and I'm a big fan of Teddy Roosevelt. You know, by the way, that he hated that nickname?
Well, it's funny, I wouldn't have dared call it to his face. This is a guy who was once hunting, and his dogs cornered a cougar. He jumped off his horse, kicked the dogs aside, and knifed the cougar to death.
There we go.
And he subsequently won the Nobel Peace Prize. However, if you're angling for the Nobel Peace Prize, my advice is don't try that stunt today.
Not on your own, not without some kind of backup in place anyway. All right, thanks for that. Folks, if you would like to play along and ask a question of the professor, follow the link that's on your screen, and this will give you all the information you need to do to ask your question of John. Thanks.